Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
I am Stephen Semanas, your host, and this is Your Voice with the NRP for Monday, February 28th, the last day of a very short month and the last day of Black History Month. Today, Antiguans and Barbudans and Calypso lovers everywhere are celebrating the 80th birthday of Sir Maclean Emmanuel, the King Shortshot. Some call him Bull, some call him the Monarch, 15-time crowned Calypso King of Antigua and Barbuda. He brought us hard-hitting social commentary in songs such as Lamentation, Power and Authority, When, Illusion, and Cry for Change. The last 9 years under a CCM administration had been a fleeting illusion, a litany of broken promises, hotels which never came, geothermal caught up in empty rhetoric, and of course a badly mangled hospital project. And the man who claimed that he's the kingmaker, who said, "Give me all free," that all roads to Church Street go through him, is screaming bloody murder. I can't get anything done. I have failed. I can't deliver fair share. Neves is crying out for change, and that change will be initiated by the NRP. The top brass of the leadership is here tonight. Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge and the Honorable Cleone Stapleton Simmons, who on Saturday will celebrate the 2nd anniversary of her election to the Neves Island Assembly. It's going to get very warm in here. Last week we had a wonderful time with the calls coming through. Our panelists have become very skilled at holding their point while you make your point. This program is all about you, and we're inviting you from the get-go to call us 469-1616, 469-1700. We'll take a break, and then we would be right back.
Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
And we're back. Dr. Janice, last week we had a very lively program. The callers were flooding in. Matter of fact, many people have said to me this week that if we had gone till midnight, the testimonials on behalf of your father would have kept coming in. 9 days has gone since the opening, and I'm seeing lovely pictures, tourists visiting the Sir Simeon Daniel Museum. It's the newest addition to a tourism product.
Good evening, Mr. Manners, Cleone, and to all those listening out in Radio Land and on the various social media platforms. I would like to take a quick moment to say hello to my mom. One night I didn't say hello. I got chastised, and so let me say hello to her. And to my son Karel, who is here with me right now. And my first son, Kaje, who is actually celebrating his birthday today. And so happy birthday to you, Kaje. I hope you're having a wonderful time. Of course, we know that there are lots of concerns with regards to the state of affairs. I must say that the show last week, we did have some good testimonies, and during the week that followed, I did receive a number of calls and continued congratulations for the adding to the landscape of Nevis with regards to the development. And as you said, happy birthday to King Shortshot. I can remember, without saying exactly when, but people would know when that song came out, When They Have Power and Authority. It was one of the songs that I remember from my high school years, and it just resonated. I can't say why back then, but I definitely was a fan, still am a fan of King Shortshirt. And so this evening, I'm hoping that we will have another very enlightening program. Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons is here. It's a very special time for her as she looks at her past years and the period going forward. So just very pleasant, happy good evening to everyone, and I look forward to a very enjoyable and informative show this evening.
The Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons will be with us up until 9:30. She's got another appointment. But Cleon, it's your night. On March 5th, 2020, you took the baton from that great man of St. Thomas's Parish, former Premier, the Honorable Joseph Walcott Parry. You took it and you ran with it, winning a by-election over there in the great parish and constituency of St. Thomas. So St. Thomians, that's the correct word, feel free to call in to congratulate your representative. We know it has been a bit of a lonely business, but you'll get company very soon. But you've held your own, and so feel free to call in and congratulate her as she moves up to year number 2, the second anniversary of being your representative in the Nevis Island Assembly. Cleon, congratulations.
Thank you, Steve, and President, good evening to everyone. Good evening, Dr. Daniel. It's indeed a pleasure for me to be here in studio on Your Voice, and I trust and hope that we are going to have a very fruitful discussion this evening as I reflect on the past 2 years as a parliamentarian.
Yes, well, as I said, it's your night. You set the pace. You tell us of some of the achievements. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Steve. So yes, the 5th of March will mark the second anniversary since I have been elected as the area representative for St. Thomas's, that is Nevis 5. And so just upon reflection as to the journey thus far, I must say that it has been both a challenging and a very rewarding experience at the same time. I'm very honored to have been elected to represent the good people of St. Thomas's. It's a very historic parish, and the people of St. Thomas's have been accustomed to representation at a very high standard. Former premiers, that is the late Dr. Simeon Daniel as well as Mr. Joseph Parry, would have perhaps superseded everyone's expectations because they were both within their own rights visionary leaders, and so I think St. Thomas's have really set the tone when it comes to representation, particularly so for the Nevis Reformation Party. And I see no reason why NRP would not continue on that same path and trend when it comes to leadership and really serious representation in moving the country forward in terms of development and ensuring that jobs are secured for people. I think that is one of the biggest challenge for our people in Nevis, the hardship that people are suffering, particularly in this 21st century. And we all know that we are still in a global pandemic, but certainly that is not an excuse, and it should not be the only excuse, because like I said, it is something that everyone throughout the world is experiencing. I believe that leaders really should show their true self and demonstrate their natural talent to lead in the midst of adversity, because of course it's only through challenges that you can really get that spark and get that diamond. Diamonds, as we all know, are made under significant pressure, and so for me, I really look forward to a time in our history when I can see Nevis really go back to that point where it has leaders who really care about the country, first and foremost, and who are really able to advance the cause of Nevisians and Nevisians residents. And so that is really something that I have aspired to do. and I think I have been really trying my best to get at it and to serve the good people of St. Thomas's. So as I reflect on some of the things that I have done within the past 2 years within the constituency, I have been actively involved in the community in a number of initiatives. I think one that I am perhaps most proud of is the Lowlands Community Foundation. And it is a foundation that was established really to assist persons in different aspects of their lives. For example, we have the education initiative as well as the business initiative, the social outreach initiative. And for just a mere 2 years, because I think sometimes, I myself forget that I have only been elected for 2 years. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime. And so we have been able to, along with the constituency, to really make a significant impact on persons through our various outreach programs. I have been very instrumental in assisting constituents, whether it is financially with a number of projects that they have been doing, personal projects. One of note is really the Cotton Lime Barbershop there in Barnesgut, where I was able to assist young constituents, Brandon Hamilton, with establishing his Cotton Lime Barbershop, and that today is doing extremely well. And so I'm very happy for him. And the whole point of really assisting Brandon in that way is that I really believe that it is important to teach people, especially young people, to fish rather than giving them handouts. And I know in our time, a lot of people look forward to handouts. How can you assist me with perhaps a $500 or $200? But those things, at the end of the day, I think people need more sustainable help, and you have to really invest in people so that they can be able to create their own opportunities to generate wealth. And I think that is very, very important. And we also have done a number of other activities, including establishing the Morella Webb Scholarship Fund. We have done a number of social activities, including walks in aid of domestic violence, creating awareness against domestic violence with children. I have put on a number of sport activities in the constituency where it's just a means of really getting people together. So far we have had at least 2 very successful fun days at the Cotton Ground Playfield, where we try to get persons involved and engaged in sporting activities such as netball, cricket, football. And coming from Cotton Ground, I remember in the time when I was growing up, I perhaps never was a person involved that much in sports. I must admit that. I did a little running in primary school, but that is about it, and some high jump in high school. But I remember in my time growing up, I remember the Pioneers Football Club used to really dominate football in Nevis. I think the competitors really were the Brownhill team and Pioneers, and of course Pioneers always used to win. And so I just remember my uncle and my brother and all of those young people in Cotton Ground, every single young fella in Cotton Ground and in St. Thomas's throughout really was involved in some form of sports, whether it was cricket, football, basketball. Everybody really, that was a thing, that was the in thing to do. Now regrettably, sports involvement, it is on the decline, where you find it is not priority for young people. It's not really their first choice now, and that is something that really ought to be rejuvenated. We have to get our young people back in those type of activities, because it not only enhances them physically, but it also keeps them out of trouble for one, and it gives them opportunities to go further. Some of them may get scholarships to go further, and so it is a way of really engaging them, keeping both their bodies and mind fit. And I think a more active effort really need to go into really bringing back sports here on Nevis. And so that is something that, we have looked at as a party, and it is on the forefront of our minds because we think that is an area that we really must pay attention to. So just as I continue the initiative, I think for me, I like to do programs in the constituency that really touch people. And a lot of times I would surprise my constituents by just visiting them on a special occasion. For example, Valentine's Day pass, we focus on persons within the constituency between the ages of 18 to 30. And so on Valentine's Day, I just really went around and gave them a little token for Valentine's Day, and people were very surprised because they were not expecting that, and certainly they were not expecting a token from the area representative. So it was indeed fun to see the young people. They say, "Oh, Cleon, we feel left out because we don't get the ham and turkey, we don't get the food hampers." So to see somebody really remember us in that way, it's a good initiative. So part and parcel of our work there is really just community outreach, ensuring that we're keeping in contact with the constituents and making them feel loved and appreciated, because of course I could not have been here in this position without the love and support of my beloved constituents. I'm very grateful for the support that they showed me. It is the same support that they would have given to Mr. Parry over the years, and so I am indeed very honored and humbled and grateful for those experiences.
Now, when you ran in the by-election, the CCM had a notion that if you're not sitting at the table, all you're going to get is crumbs. That St. Thomas's should join the fold and give them all 5. Now, we see in Barbados a leader who have always loved Mayor Motley, not only getting 30 mil once, but getting it twice. And now Barbados is in a bit of a muddle. They have court cases pending there. Ever since her re-election, they can't move forward. Mm-hmm. It's so very important in a democracy that there is opposition.
Yes.
You think you have dispelled that mistaken notion that if you're not part of the administration, that you can't contribute to society?
Certainly, I think so. I mean, it is unfortunate because, as we know, the CCM government is actually in government. So I see no reason why they are unable to do what the people really mandated them, the majority of the people mandated them to do, and that is to really provide for the people of Nevis. St. Thomas's over the years, and it is not something that is new. I believe for the period of from 1992 to 2006, St. Thomas's, if I may be bold to say, was really the neglected constituency. I believe that, and perhaps Gingerland, but nevertheless, Gingerland always voted for the party in government. But St. Thomas's, in my respectful view, perhaps was somewhat punished because we did not see any development in that area, any significant development in that area for an entire 14 years span. And luckily, when NRP won in 2006 and served during the period of 2006 to 2013, that is when St. Thomas's really got a chance to see some development. And we can talk about the roads that linked the villages, Cotton Ground, Barnscott and Jessops, and that within itself would have brought significant development in the area. If you drive through Cotton Ground and that road to Barnscott, it enabled persons to have a number of real estate projects in that area because the road facility was actually put in place. The road infrastructure, was actually put in place. And so, I can speak, and I always talk about the community centers that at that time NRP received significant criticism from the opposition government. That is, the CCM was in opposition at that time. And now just look fast forward to today, who utilize the community centers more than the present government. And so those are things, the housing project there in Cotton Ground that NRP started during that period. NRP really revolutionized housing here in Nevis, and we can speak about cherry gardens and different areas. One of the things that I really admired most about the Nevis Reformation Party, particularly at that time under the leadership of Mr. Parry, and I suppose it is fair to say that he really continued the vision of Dr. Simeon Daniel, where they provide opportunities for the people of the constituency to be able to own land. And that is something that I certainly would continue, because I think it is important for persons to be able to own land, and not just own land in Nevis, but to own land in the area where they live or the area where they are from. And so I have really started the initiative of reaching out to private landowners to have a discussion to see where, once NRP is elected, where in St. Thomas's we can access land, make land accessible for, if not housing provided through the Land and Housing Corporation, perhaps through a private entity. And so those are the things that I continue to look at. I continue to speak to my constituents. I know recently I was criticized by the Honorable Premier during his most recent press conference, where he stated that the area representative does not reach out to him through written communication or through meetings. And I wish to use this forum to really refute those statements, because nothing can be further from the truth. I recall I would have written to the Premier on different matters, and one comes to mind specifically. There was an issue with the computer lab at the St. Thomas's primary school. I'm not even sure if the lab is in operation presently. I hope that it is. And so one parent came and they would have drawn that to my attention, and I took time out to pen and to write about the issue and to ask and inquire about what was the status, when would the situation be at the lab, when it would be addressed, and to date no response. That letter went to the Honorable Premier as well as the Minister of Education, Troy Libert, and again you don't get any response. Similarly, I would have written in the past to the Premier about different issues affecting the constituency. In his press conference, he stated that the area representative would put things on social media, perhaps Facebook. But, for me, because I know he's a Facebook guru and he's always on social media, everything he puts on social media, one may have to forgive me if I really thought perhaps that was the best place to get his attention. And it certainly did. And so I think we have reached a point in our history where you cannot continue to write to someone who have shown no interest. I mean, this government has been the governing administration for the past 9 years, and if within the past 9 years we have seen no significant development in St. Thomas's, one have to ask themselves, is it really worth the time and effort, the ink and the paper, to really be writing to the Premier merely to get to get your letter or your correspondence ignored. It really doesn't make sense. And not only that, at this point we are in an election year, so the modus operandi really is to let people know what you are going to do for them. So we have really gone beyond the time of negotiation and request. The 5 years has now expired or about to expire, and so what is the point of really sitting down in a meeting to say what if you did not do it from inception? You had a whole 5 years to do something. There's a wall there at the Cotton Ground Playfield. I have spoken about it in numerous forums. I spoke about it in Parliament. I spoke about it at a town hall meeting that the government had in 2000 and I believe it was 2021 October at the Cotton Ground Community Center. I raised the issue before my constituents. I raised the issue of the drainage problem there in Cotton Ground. You get promises, we will look into it, or we are going to fix it, and to date nothing. Similarly, in December, everyone who paid attention to the budget address, I outlined all of the issues and challenges that my constituents were facing, and I itemized them, and the response from the other side, we are going to fix it. To date, nothing. This is now March, and no effort has been made to address the wall, to address the drainage situation. Look at the community center. The community center there in Cotton Ground has been the health center has been in the community center now for the past, decade? No effort has been made, not even in a simple budget proposal, to have a separate community health center. And so we have reached a point where we see this government really do not care, and time and time again, regardless as to who is the candidate for the concerned citizen movement, they come with the same excuse: elect me to cabinet, not to government, because they are in government, and so really there is no reason why they are not doing what they're supposed to do, because they are the ruling party. They control the public purse, and time after time you hear, elect me to cabinet. Well, if it is that your government is in power and they are the administration and they fail to act, how then can we be convinced that if someone from that party was elected to cabinet, that they would be able to do anything for the people of St. Thomas's? That doesn't really sit well with us, because if it is that you care about us, you have the resources, you are in government, there is really no excuse for you not to fix the things that are causing the good people of St. Thomas's grievance. And so that really is the issue for me. I have concluded that this government does not care about St. Thomas's, and it is really time for St. Thomas's and Nevis as a whole to really get good representation. St. Thomas's have not only the government, but the minister, the federal minister. He would have won the Nevis 11 seat, which is a combination of both Nevis 5 and 4. And again, nothing. And so we have concluded there in St. Thomas's that clearly we are not priority. History would have taught us that it is only when an NRP government is elected to the NIA where things get done in St. Thomas's, and certainly that trend would continue regardless as to what people are out there saying. I think the good people of St. Thomas's, they are worth so much more than bribes. They are worth so much more than people seeking out individuals simply for a mere vote. They are worth so much more than a few cases of carry beer. And these are the things that our people need to look at and open their eyes and really pay attention to. Nobody is in St. Thomas's as an outsider more than the Honorable Premier. He is in St. Thomas's every single weekend. He is in Barnscott every single Saturday morning. and he would go and he would patronize different bars and food outlets in St. Thomas's. But sometimes I wonder if people are paying attention, because those same places that he patronized, there is no effort to even assist those persons. A lot of them are still cooking food within their own kitchen, and nothing is wrong with that, because of course everybody love homely home cooked food. But at the same time, you have to have in the back of your mind, as a representative and as a leader, that perhaps you can assist these persons and moving them from point B to point A, advancing them. Perhaps these persons, aspire to one day be able to open in their own restaurants. And these are the kind of things that we look at when we talk about, representation and really advancing the cause for Nigerians, and taking people, teaching them how to fish, basically assisting them with the necessary tools so that, they can provide service to their communities and as well to the country. And so we don't want any form of, carbon copy type representation or any cheap representation there in St. Thomas's. I think the people of St. Thomas's deserve a representative who knows what the people need, who is gifted and talented and spirited to really advance the cause of persons in a meaningful way, okay, in a substantial and sustainable way. And I believe in me they have found that person.
Now, he believes in what I will call bar politics. He probably thinks a drink of rum, a Guinness, is enough to satisfy the people of Nevis. But people have serious bread and butter issues. Certainly hasn't demonstrated that people matter more. We'll take a break, give you a chance to catch your breath, and we'll be right back.
But the economy is broken, the government stick. Can the opposition come and take a seat? The debt is high and employment's low, and it's the poor people who taking the blow. I say we tired, we need a revolution. We just can't depend on vaccination. I say we tired, time to pick we self off the floor. Just remember people matter more. So when you hear them talking bull on the radio, people used to matter more. Whether you red, blue, orange or yellow, people used to matter more. But when they needed us for last election, we were always their first option. But now they in and they comfortable. People don't matter no more. Boy, some people may not like this, but people used to matter more. RCCM them made a slow come out of it. People used to matter more.
We're back. The Honorable Cleone Stapleton Simmons is only with us down to the bottom of the hour. This is your time to put your call in. Give her a word of congratulations as she moves towards the second anniversary as the representative of the great parish of St. Thomas's. 469-1616, 469-1700. Those are the numbers to speak on your voice with the NRP. Party leader Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, you're eager to say something.
Well, I'll just jump in and be the first on tonight's show to extend congratulations to my colleague. She did pretty much, blaze the trail, so to speak, with being the representative for NRP. And as you mentioned, it would have been, maybe a lonely time in terms of having to respond to budget addresses, etc. And so I'm quite happy we now have full slate of candidates, a lot of different perspectives, and but I just want to say to Cleone, congratulations, and I wish you many more years of success as the parliamentarian for St. Thomas's. And as you speak about representation, I'll just say what I've noticed lately is that when issues are raised you get a response saying that it's a phased response. They're doing projects in a phased way. And I often wonder if NRP had not raised some of these issues and concerns, would there have even been a response to say that this is only phase one, even though they had allocations in place to have the entire project completed. So.
Well, we are heading towards an election, and it's the fix-it season.
Yes.
So Cleon should be comforted. You've spoken about the wall at Cotton Ground on several occasions, and he did say at his press conference it will be addressed. But he also said, and it's ludicrous, that because you're not bringing issues to him, he had to put in place a community advisor.
Yes. And I wish to just take a few minutes out to address that, because, I mean, we have to call it what it is. You know, I don't think during this...
Hold it right there. We've got our first caller for the evening. Good evening, caller. You're welcome.
And good evening, Steve. Good evening, Janice, and good evening, Cleo.
Could you raise your voice a bit?
Good evening. I am calling to congratulate the Honorable Cleo Stapleton Simmons, 2 years of representation, following on from some 30-odd years of representation by the NRP. I think I just want to commend her in particular for the establishment of the foundation, the Lowlands Foundation it is, and also for leading the efforts in a number of voluntary projects, cleaning up parts of St. Thomas's, and actually doing things that matter to people in the constituency. And I think St. Thomas's needs no reminder that whenever CCM is in power, it leaves them out. I remember in 2006 the roads in Jessup and Cotton Ground were in a deplorable state. And it is the NRP government, of course, the Premier Paris from St. Thomas's and representing St. Thomas's. It is he who transformed the road network in St. Thomas's to build the housing project in St. Thomas's in Cotton Ground, where we actually bought private land and made sure that people in the area got land. That was the second time it was done. The Premier Daniel did that before in the first NRP government. So I think it is to be understood that once CCM is in power, St. Thomas's is going to be neglected. And so nobody in St. Thomas's needs to be reminded. Also, the good thing is that St. Thomas's has all the major tourism plants in the parish. So Four Seasons, Paradiso, and what's that one now? The Hamilton, all of those are in St. Thomas's parish. So the people have found work. So there is a sense of independence. So this whole question of thinking that you will identify some people and then they will go around and bribe the people in St. Thomas's, I just want to identify with the comments made by the Honorable Cleo Stapleton that people are worth much more than bribing. And so I just want to end by commending her for taking a big parish in a new direction, doing new things, and of course the other constituents will follow in due course whenever that bell is rung.
Thank you very much for calling in. Okay, Cleon.
Thank you, caller, and thank you, Dr. Daniel, for your congratulations. Yes, back to your question, Steve. You know, it's really sad. It's really sad that, you know, the Premier would have made those statements, because nothing can be further from the truth. The truth is, the advisor was appointed simply to campaign in St. Thomas's, and it doesn't get any clearer and any more basic than that. It absolutely has nothing to do with me. And so, you know, it's a bit of a stretch of the truth, because certainly I would have done my best to make the Premier aware. I mean, Nevis is only 36 square miles, 10,000 people, and if you as a sitting Premier is not availed to the issues affecting this very small island and small constituency, then certainly one can only conclude that the Premier has gotten to the point where he is out of touch with the people. He's not connected. And so if it is that he had to appoint a community advisor with, only special concentration for Nevis 5 and St. Thomas's, then surely we cannot buy into that assertion. It makes absolutely no sense. If you have a community advisor to advise you on community issues, you have a whole community development department, you have a whole social services department, and here it is, you chose in the middle of a pandemic when the advice really to the administration that was that you needed to consult experts to help to rebuild the economy. And so what Nevis really was in need of is perhaps economic advisor, not a community advisor. But the whole purpose of that was really just to campaign in St. Thomas's, and that is exactly the activity that we see taking place. And I have to ask the question, if it is that the community advisor is advising you on issues in St. Thomas's, then why aren't these issues being rectified? And so it really doesn't make sense. I think people need not pay too much pay too much attention on that. And really, it is, I think at this point, just using that as an analogy, it is a clear indication that the Premier is not in touch and his time really has expired. We have gone beyond, well, actually myself and I believe my party, we have passed the stage of really negotiation. I think I have concluded that this government is not capable of providing the type of leadership that Nevis needs at this time. And so for me, it really doesn't make sense to continue to beat a dead horse. And so I accept that, and I think the people now need to look forward for a change, because the country within itself is ripe for a change. We need a change to elect persons who are serious about developing Nevis, persons who are serious about advancing Nevisions, and persons who are capable, and most importantly, persons who care. Because I think it is the lack of the latter, the care, that has us in this position that we are in today. I mean, we are looking at an administration where wastage is a number one priority. Every single project that this administration has started has had a cost overrun. Why? And it clearly demonstrates that this government seriously lack managerial skills. I mean, if you can't, prepare a simple budget and stick within that budget, and always having significant cost overruns where you have to fix this and remedy this. Look at the hospital. Just take a look at the hospital.
I'm amused, because every time for the last year or 2 years, when the Premier is asked about the hospital, he said it's moving apace. What does that mean? What does apace mean? At one point he said by the end of this year it will be substantially completed. And then he moved that substantially completed to 2023. All semantics. All verbal gymnastics.
Mr. Manners, the question that really must be asked is a project that was supposed to be completed in 24 months. And we're now 5 years out, and at the last rendition, it was still within budget. Mm-hmm. At the last budget hearing, it was stated that there is no cost overrun because it was budgeted at 18 million, and, mm-hmm. and they have not exceeded that. And so that really, should be an issue as to how can you have a 24-month project going on for 5 years and you have not exceeded the budget. This indicates that the budget was, or the allocation was significantly, inflated.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes, and so that really, as Dr. Daniel has said, that is the pattern, that is the trend, and we cannot continue like this for another 5 years. We certainly can't. The country cannot afford it, the people cannot afford it, and so the time has come for people to take all of these things into consideration and look at the alternative. Look at the alternative, because we certainly need a change in government. I believe if this administration cared, that they would have done a lot better than what we have seen. I mean, we were promised, a lot of promises were made, empty promises, broken promises, and so the time has come for people to really demonstrate that they cannot take anymore. And so I just want to make this public appeal to persons, all those who are tuned in, to on election day, ensure that you fight for your country, you exercise your right to democracy, and you vote for a change. It's time for us to build a better Nevis. I mean, this government, I think that they have climax, okay? And so for me personally, I do not expect anything more. They have climax. Now, after an entire decade, there is nothing that you can do to convince me that you care about the people of Nevis. I think your time has expired. Unfortunately, you would have already served 2 terms, and I think that is enough, because to give this present administration a 3rd term to continue in the pattern, because nothing will change, continue in the pattern that they have been going, where you have cost overruns, recklessness, they are unable to finish any sort of project, and even when they finish projects, nothing significant for the people of Nevis. We can look at the health situation. I mean, look at healthcare, look at the COVID situation, look at the management of the COVID situation. I remember we were promised a separate COVID isolation center. I'm not sure what it was called, but I believe something was in the pipeline. I did read about it and hear about it, and to date, nothing. You have a COVID-19 ward up there at the Alexandra Hospital, where it is putting significant pressure already on a hospital that lack resources, and who really do not have resources, in human resources, in terms of nurses and doctors to care for patients. And so you have a COVID-19 ward at the hospital where everyone, once they test positive for COVID, they are put within that same space, regardless as to the severity of the COVID-19 or the impact that it has on them. That cannot be good. It cannot be good for recovery. It doesn't make any sense. And so I want people not to focus on what this premier says during his press conference, because it is absolute, fluff, nothing substantial. Look at his actions. How can you have a junior minister of health, a senior minister of health, and yet still you fail to deal with the COVID-19 situation in a meaningful way? How can you have patients at the Alexandra Hospital, COVID people who test positive, and they are in a bed next to a patient who perhaps have more severe symptoms towards COVID, and this person is looking at that person dying, and they are expected to recover? It does not make sense. That is not the model that is used internationally. And these are the kind of things that Nigerians need to wake up and call out, speak out. I was made to understand that all of the patients who were in the COVID-19 ward, for at least for the past month, that tragically they have passed. Mm-hmm. And it is indeed sad. There is also an allegation where it is reported that Nevis is not reporting the actual number of COVID-19 deaths. That is a situation, and so the numbers look to us like they are very small, because the needle is not really moving, but in reality we are having more people dying from COVID, and the recovery has not been as good as we really expect it to. And the government really should have put in place a separate COVID-19 isolation center. That was the recommendation. That was the international recommendation, and it was promised, and they did not stand by that. And so we cannot continue to turn a blind eye to the type of representation that we are getting in this country. Here it is, the Premier talking about someone who is in opposition for 2 years, talking about he had to appoint an advisor to advise him. I don't know on what. I don't know pertaining to what, because we're still not really seeing any meaningful conversion on the ground, any meaningful efforts. If you were to ask, well, okay, what have you done since being appointed as advisor? Where is your portfolio? Does it stay at merely giving out cases of beers and other alcohols to the various bars in St. Thomas's? What happens to the other areas? What happened to St. James's? Nothing. So the community advisor is not for St. James's. It's not for St. John's. It's only for St. Thomas's. I mean, come on, people, wake up. This is simply using the public purse to campaign, and I can understand why this present administration had to do that. I can understand why they needed to go so drastic, because of course that person is coming up against Cleon. So some drastic measure had to be taken, because within Cleon you have serious representation. In St. Thomas's it is serious competition. So what they are doing now is focusing on that area. But we are ready for them, so let them come.
Now, one of the shocking things I heard at the press conference, and let me preface that by saying, we all know that dialysis treatment is a millstone around the Minister of Health's neck. I was shocked beyond belief when he said that a young man had to be flown to Trinidad to have a shunt inserted so that they can do dialysis. After 13 years or many years, a decade of promises. He also said that, in reference to his visit to St. Kitts, that he doesn't listen to people. Likes to say that people are making noise, and he ignores that. That he went to the dialysis unit in St. Kitts to find out from the people there, and they told him that they're not uncomfortable with having their treatment over there. I've heard about the discomfort which dialysis patients undergo, the recovery time, but he's basically saying that don't listen to anybody else. The people who go to St. Kitts 3 times a week are being given some assistance, and they're fine. Couldn't believe it.
Yes, but like I said, for me, I'm not sure about Dr. Daniel, but I don't really listen to the Premier. I don't really take anything that, I take everything he says with a grain of salt. I perhaps would have to hear that one from the dialysis patients themselves. Okay? Because, sometimes he has a way of really exaggerating or stretching the truth a bit. And that really doesn't make sense, looking at the situation and really understand how ill, dialysis patients really, how ill they are. And sometimes I know quite a few of them. Sometimes they are very weak, and then they have to journey over to St. Kitts at least 3 times a week. It is taxing. It will be taxing for any normal person. I can't imagine for someone who is ill and so severely ill. And so for me, everything that the Premier says, I really take it with a grain of salt. I don't know about Janice.
Well, Janice will have her time a little later, but I know you've only got 7 minutes or so with us because you have to move on to something else.
Yes.
But 2 things. When you were here previously, you talked about the plight of the people in Barnesgot and the ability to get land. Any moves in that direction?
Well, actually, there has been no significant development. What we have seen in Barnesgot is that private investors continue to purchase lands in Barnesgot, and really it is a significant degeneration of the village within itself. And one of the things I always say to the good people of Banscott is that an NRP-led administration would ensure that it secure lands for the people of Banscott. We were told and advised by the Premier that the lands were so expensive and that the government couldn't afford to buy them, only to learn later that one of those parcel of land, I believe it was about 4 acres, that was purchased from a private landowner at a cost of $8 EC. And that is something that is very painful, because the government could have purchased that land and make it available for the good people of Banscott, but then it goes back to the spirit of caring, the lack of care. And these are the things that our people must take into consideration. We want a government, we want ministers of government, we want leaders who care, and who care in a substantial way. Not somebody who have been cultured to give you a handout of $300 or just to give you money, because at the end of the day, that money is going to finish. It doesn't make sense. We want to elect persons who are going to put long-term and sustainable plans in place that is really going to enhance the lives of all Nigerians, and especially the constituents of St. Thomas's. And so that really is my public appeal to the good people. They have been good to me, and so I in return will continue to be good to them. I am not in government at this present moment, but I aspire to be, and I know God answers prayers. And so once the NRP is elected into government, the entire parish of St. Thomas's would be transformed. And of course it will take time. But I see the need especially for the village of Cotton Ground, where I am from, to really get a facelift. And so those are things that are in the pipeline that we see there is a need. There's a need for the people to be able to live sustainable and comfortable lives. And the party leader is here with me, and so I can assure the good people of St. Thomas's that help is coming. Administration that cares is on its way, and all they have to do come election, exercise your franchise, go out and vote, and ensure that you vote for the Nevis Reformation Party, vote for a party that cares, and vote for change. Change is needed. Vote to save your country.
Finally, before we let you go, the supervisor of election has released the annual register of voters. We know that in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, many elections are won and lost inside the electoral office. Have you been able to scrutinize the list? Any thoughts?
Certainly, I have been able to scrutinize the list, and those persons on the list who perhaps we were not sure and we couldn't find, because the approach that we take in St. Thomas's is that I personally write to each registered voter, newly registered voter, and if it is that the mail come back to my office, then I would do an investigation to physically go and find that person to ensure that they live in St. Thomas's. And after taking all of those steps, if you cannot find the person, then of course you have to object to that person's name. Now I want to take a few minutes to explain to persons the objection process. Now the objection does not necessarily mean that we don't want your vote. Okay, it does not mean that we are rejecting you. It simply means that we cannot find you, we cannot find who you are, we don't know where you live, and so we are objecting to you so that you can present yourself. It's a mere verification process. So if it is that your name was objected to, but you do live in the constituency, then you come to the hearing and you provide your evidence that you do so, and we all move forward. And so it's part and parcel of the electoral electoral process. You know, there's nothing to be shamed about. I noticed the government making a big, you know, fuss about it, but that is not the case. We live in a democracy, and of course persons have to know who you are. So if through our best efforts we cannot find you, despite sending you registered mail, despite going to the address that you provided, and we are still not able to find you, then certainly we have to object to your name. And I want to encourage persons to really register where you live, transfer your votes to where you live, so that we can have a fair and democratic process and fair elections and elections. And that is what we are advocating for as the Nevis Reformation Party.
I said last question, but final. Any special way in which you're commemorating your second anniversary?
Oh, certainly. And so we actually have a calendar of activities which started today. And so I and myself and Dr. Daniel, we just concluded some visit canvassing in Jessops. And so we'll be throughout the constituencies doing visits, just checking up on people, making sure that they are okay, addressing any issues that they may have. And so tomorrow we will be in the vicinity of Kodak Road, visiting persons, and then of course I will be on the different media outlets. We have a very special show planned on the legendary program on Wednesday, so I would like for everyone to tune in, where we are going to honor the life of our beloved brother, Brother Chesley Pharaoh Davis. And so we want to give some reflections in honor of him and the contribution that he has made to Nevis, and that would be the legendary program dedicated to him. We also will have a flagship event, which is a fitness walk slated for Saturday 5th, starting at 6 a.m. and the walk will commence at the 5 turn at the Cotton Ground bus stop, and then we are going to make our way to Westbury by our good friend Max, by his shop, where we are going to have a complimentary or appreciation breakfast for the good persons there within the Westbury village, as well as all those who participated on the walk. And so I look forward to that. It's an opportunity for us to get fit physically as we approach the elections, and so we're looking forward. So I'm extending an invitation to all persons, you know, to come out and let us join and be fit and show our presence. All NRP soldiers, time to rally, okay? And then on Sunday we will conclude with a church service where the constituents will come out and join me at church, and of course other persons are welcome to join. We'll be visiting the St. Thomas's Anglican Church.
Well, quite an event.
Yes.
Quite a number of events. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We will release you now. We know you're a very busy woman.
Thank you.
Go well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
We're at the bottom of the hour, or just past it, which means that we've got another 28 minutes or so. We'll be with the party leader, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. These are people who love people, people who care. Others, for them, people don't matter anymore. We'll take a break, and then we'll be back. We're on the home stretch.
I say we tired, Max, keep the momentum. Oh, Mr. Premier, where we get the energy from. I say we tired, time to protect the poor. Just remember, people matter more.
Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
And we're back. We've got 26 minutes to go, and the party leader is still with us. She'll take us up to the top of the hour. Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, you've got a real soldier here.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. As Honorable Stephen Simmons mentioned, we did have a walkthrough in Jessops this afternoon, just reaching out to some of the people, some of them who would have remembered me from a long time ago, and some of them I was quite pleased to meet for the first time. In fact, we ran into a group of young guys and just chit-chatted with them for a bit, and it was interesting to hear the conversations. There was one young guy who was actually doing farming, and we inquired, is this something that you really love doing, or is this something that you're doing to make ends meet? And he said, everybody's struggling right now and everybody's trying to survive, and so he's trying to do what he can. And that sort of brought back to my mind some of the issues that we have with regards to agriculture and facilitating and supporting farming. Now, we spoke about representation and what's going on in St. Thomas's. We have the same representative for agriculture in Nevis as well as St. Kitts, St. Thomas's and St. James. And when we look at the reason why we would want to advance agriculture, it has a lot to do with the times that we're living in. And some people say coming out of a pandemic, where we saw a lot of concern regarding the import of food. And we are now seeing the war that is happening over in Ukraine. And again, we are already realizing that there are going to be some impacts. And sometimes people feel that we are so far removed that it's not going to affect us. But when you look at the cost of oil and gas that is increasing, that is only going to be passed down to the consumers. And so when we speak about what a representative really ought to provide, and we look at agriculture, for example, we have seen just last year the results of mismanagement of agricultural lands, where you have people in conflict and fighting and actually destroying crops. And if you had a proper, effective management program for your agricultural lands, then you would not end up in a situation where the tenants are fighting against each other. And so when we look at why is agriculture important and why it should be properly managed, of course we go to food security. Of course we go to the import bill. Of course we go to tourism. And, all of these go hand in hand. Based on the pandemic and what we have been seeing happening with families struggling, you asked, I had a conversation with one parent and has children going to school, no lunch program, free of cost. Parents must find money for the lunch program, no breakfast program. And so when we look at agriculture and we know that we need to manage it in such a way so that we could have enhanced food security, we could assist parents. Because sometimes when you look at breakfast, a well-nourished, a nourishing breakfast is stuff that you can provide, you can grow. And so if under an NRP government, when we're looking at the agriculture and what needs to be done to help achieve food security, which of course is one of the sustainable development goals that we speak about, then if the focus is on the people, when we say people matter more, we're not looking at agriculture to bring in thousands of palm trees, and you cannot make the connection to how that is going to improve the lives of people. And so on the NRP program, when we're looking to help to minimize the struggles of especially the most vulnerable single mothers who have to provide breakfast and rush and get the children off to school, then I'm sure that there's a lot more that we can do in that area. And so when we speak about representation, these are the type of matters that we would want to see on the table. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. We understand, yes, there is some work being done in agriculture. We know in Indian Castle. But when I think about agriculture in Indian Castle, what comes to mind is there was an agreement that I don't know if it's still in place, where in Indian Castle the land is part of a development deal for the for development. And so if you're serious about food security, we know that in St. Kitts, government owns about 80% of the land. In Nevis, government owns only about 10% of the land. Most of the land is in private holdings. And so those areas where we have agricultural lands, like in Maddens and Indian Castle and New River and Prospect, these areas should really be earmarked for food security. We've seen COVID-19. We've seen how it has impacted us. We've seen the cost of food increasing. We've seen a war all the way over in Ukraine, Russia, and we're already seeing the cost of oil going up, which means the cost of electricity is going to go up. And so where are the programs that we have in place to go back to what I speak so much about, self-sufficiency, self-determination, being able to provide for ourselves in a sustainable way? And if you understand what it means to have a representative that looks out for the people and try to make their lives better, then that is what the NRP government would be about. And I am not seeing at this juncture where there's any connectivity. There isn't a connection between helping to make people's lives better and the decisions that are being made by the government. And so while we look at those issues and we look at how parents and people, people who are struggling can fit into a sustainable development of Nevis, we have to look at, for example, providing whether it's drip irrigation, because we know we have periods of drought. It has to be water storage, because we know sometimes it's very difficult to get the water. I'm saying this because we must make the connection between where the money is out there. Drought and flooding, all of these associated with climate change, and these are the connections that must be made if we are going to be able to advance and develop our agriculture in a meaningful way. The use of technology in agriculture, a lot of the children, the youths, they're very much into technology, but how do they use that in a meaningful way that could help with their livelihoods, etc.? These are the types of programs that we have to be able to put in place so that when we speak about agriculture and food security, the youths understand that there is a place for them. Many students finish high school, very good grades in agricultural science, but then there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect, and they're not interested in going out into the fields. But when we look at diversifying the crops and actually looking at agriculture on a much larger scale as an industry, where you can have people working along every level of the agricultural process, then you begin to create opportunities. And it goes back, like Cleo mentioned earlier, it goes back to the purpose and the reason for why you are doing what you're doing. And if you have the people, if you have the youths who finish school but have no employment opportunities, minimal employment opportunities, then you must make decisions that would help to address those issues. We spoke a little while about the situation at the hospital. Again, being people-centric helps in the decision-making. Understanding what the concerns are, what the needs are, will help you to address those needs. I listened to the press conference of the Premier the other day, and he spoke to great length about the need for nurses. He spoke about some who were recruited and brought in, and he's encouraging the youngsters to pursue an education in nursing. But the disconnect, the 2022 financial assistance program that came out, I think the deadline is the end of March, where it's encouraging persons to apply for financial assistance to get a degree. And interestingly, despite the plea for nurses, despite the plea for dialysis, and I think he went on to explain all of the different specialists that you would want to be able to have the unit function effectively. In the call for applications for 2022, it says that medicine is not a priority. And so the people out there who want to pursue, who want to get some assistance, and so it would then mean they probably would have to go to Taiwan and use some time. But we can't be saying we're spending so many millions of dollars to develop a medical facility, and we are not providing the assistance to have the young people to pursue their education. I know of a young man who wants to be a neurosurgeon and would have graduated and had so many subjects, very, very brilliant guy, and was not able to get any financial assistance. And so if you do not have the connections, if you do not know the goal that you're trying to achieve, then these are the things that would happen. And we have said before, we are looking at making Nevis a model sustainable island based on the Sustainable Development Goals. And when we look at those goals and what we're trying to achieve with regards to renewable energy, with regards to healthcare, with regards to food security, then you provide the training opportunities consistent with what you're trying to accomplish. And so it's easy to say, there's a scholarship in this place where we have, maybe visa free travel to, and there's a scholarship in that place. But how does that tie into the overall picture for the direction in which you want to take the island? And so we're looking at renewable energy. We just got a new diesel generator. We see the cost of oil going up, and so you see where that can create a problem. Whereas if that money had been invested in renewable energy, even solar panels to begin with, then we could see where we could be moving forward. But everybody right now really should be concerned about the cost of food, the cost of living overall being increased because of factors that are not really within our control. And so you try to minimize those external factors that is going to impact the quality of living for your people. And so we're not, as Cleon said earlier, we're not convinced that this government is really has the best interest of the people at heart. I can't tell you what they have, as their best interest, but we know that there are things that can be done, and I've mentioned how we can do that generally, because as we are well aware, we spoke about, for example, unfinished projects, and all of a sudden now, that was the first phase. and now we're looking at the second phase. And so these are some of the things that we really have to look at and and try to work out whether or not you can see your life being improved, whether or not the necessary support to enhance your livelihood is there, and whether or not that is a concern of the government. And so being able, some people would say, you don't point out all of their flaws, you must speak about your plan. And so I think it's important to point out the areas where much better can be done and provide some idea as to how it can be improved, because if we're not able to do that, then of course we can be talking about plans, but people don't really understand how it connects back to what they have now and how their lives can be improved going forward. And so, as mentioned, the purpose and the reason that you do what you do, people must be aware, and people must recognize that what is being done right now, their quality of life is not improving, the struggles are real, and there's no direct attention to try to alleviate those concerns.
10 minutes to 10, that's all the time we've got. We'd really like to hear from people involved in the agricultural sector. We want to hear how citizens are being impacted by our health sector. 10 minutes to 10 o'clock. And anything else, Dr. Daniel, impacting your mind at this moment as we await the callers?
Well, what I've recognized is that there seems to be a concerted effort, rather than to address an issue generally. For example, I speak about children going to school and how they can benefit if we had a breakfast program, if we had a lunch program that they didn't have to pay for. And when I speak about these things, in my mind, I am not thinking whether or not these are black children, white children, nationals or non-nationals, because we are trying to build an inclusive society, and once you provide a standardized service, everybody should have an equal opportunity to benefit. Now, I've been made aware that there seems to be some concerted effort to segregate certain sectors of our community and to try to provide specific services, to try to as I would say, if you're a non-national in a country, you will be vulnerable to certain needs. And if this current government feels that the approach to make Nevis better, or the approach to have Nevis developed in a sustainable way, is to fragment and deal with particular sectors of the community, then it's only going to add to the divisiveness that we have. And so...
Hold your thought, we've got a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Steve.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, this is President Daly calling.
Oh, welcome.
I just wanted to, in the first instance, to congratulate the Honorable Cleon Stephen for 3 years of sterling service under very difficult circumstances over there in St. Thomas's. And I wish her all the best going forward for the rest of her term, and of course going forward with a new NRP administration by the next election. But I would like to address something that the party leader spoke about earlier, which is the food issue of food security and agriculture, because it's a very vexing matter that, having seen the stark underbelly of what COVID can do, that we have not moved with any great urgency to rectify our shortcomings with regard to food security, food and nutrition security. Dr. Hudd spoke about lands that are earmarked for hotel development that are traditionally agricultural lands. And it's as if we have not learned anything about the importance of agriculture, especially in these very difficult times. I would have heard a report today indicating that because of global warming and climate change, that in 18 years, 18 years, the whole world will be facing a whirlwind when it comes to food security. And I'm not seeing this government showing any interest in addressing that difficulty when it comes to water storage and, of course, deep wells to support agriculture independent of the potable water system. That is very important. Getting young people involved in agriculture is very important. But to do that, you have to change the whole dynamic of how agriculture is being practiced. One of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problem on Nevis right now, is monkeys. The government is simply offering a bounty to anybody who cares to take up the bounty to trap monkeys. The difficulty and great challenge with that program is not coordinated, and therefore you have persons who are simply going in to catch wherever they can catch, whenever they can catch, how many can catch just to get the money, without trying to impact a particular community where the monkeys are running rampant. I speak of communities in Mount Lily. I speak of communities in Fort Worth, River, Kids Bay, that have been overrun with monkeys. So for us to practice agriculture in any meaningful way and not address this very serious and vexing problem with animal control, especially monkey control, many farmers have become frustrated. Many backyard farmers have become frustrated and are no longer showing any interest. Where is the relief? Where is the program? Where are the policies regarding animal control? We get lip service. We put aside $500,000 for animal control. But if you don't have a policy regarding how you effect that control, you're not doing anything. And that is a policy right now that comes to agriculture. There is no policy. And they really need to get back to understanding what is important going forward for the next 18, 20, 25 years, is to make sure that we are indeed food sufficient, that we are indeed nutrition secure, because the world will leave us behind if we don't address that matter. Good night and thank you.
Hi, good night. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Yep.
Yeah, so, and just to piggyback from that, and I mean, the monkey problem, it's really a serious problem. And when we speak about government providing support, some people have used the electric fence to shock the monkeys and try to protect the farms. But when we've been talking about renewables, and we know that you can use solar energy to address this issue. So as was mentioned, it's just a matter of sitting down and coordinating the approach, understanding that your end result is to be able to reduce the cost of living and to minimize the impact that we're having from these external factors. And so what is in our control? What can we do? And those are the things that we must focus on. It's not good enough to sit back and say you're waiting on a boat to come in. There's a lot that we can do here. And by reducing the import bill, we have more money to provide employment opportunities, to pay people to create work. But you must know where you're heading in order to have things mapped out and understand how you're going to be able to accomplish this. And what I was speaking about just before Dr. Daly called was the continued divisive approach that we're seeing in this government with regards to how they address certain issues. And we're saying that once you have a standardized process, a standardized procedure where each person has equal opportunity to access services, etc., then you allow for a more harmonious community and people being able to work together for the betterment of the community. But when you create the type of environment where one set of people feel that they are being neglected for another group of people, then we're not able to move forward. And we have known for a long time that there has been some attempt to put the non-nationals against the locals, and we're of the view that we need the non-nationals here, but we just need to be able to have the policies in place where everybody can work together for the betterment of Nevis, so to speak. And so at I just reiterate what my colleague would have said earlier. The only way that we could bring about the type of policies that we need, the only way that we could make Nevis nice again, is really to change the government. You need to have a government that is connected with the people. You need to have a government that really understands and is there to serve, to represent the needs of the people. And so we cannot say that we want to be able to improve our health system by the largest steel building, but not investing in our students who want to continue their education to be able to work in these buildings. And so these are things that we would want us to be able to do going forward. And an NRP government, we have done it before, and it's our intention to do it again, because we're here to represent our people and to improve the quality of life, to improve life and livelihoods, and to make Nevis, like I said, nice again.
I was wondering if the night would finish without you repeating the mantra, but you did on 2 occasions. Making Nevis nice again. And like Short has said it in Calypso, cry for change. And change must come.
Change must come.
Change must come. So whenever the bell is rung, Nevisians, make sure you're registered and go out and vote for the NRP for your party, so that you can have an improved standard of living and that we can make Nevis nice again. It's 10 o'clock. We're at the top of the hour. Absolute privilege to have had the top brass here tonight. And I know you were listening in rapt attention. Not many calls, but we know you're soaking it all up. The NRP cares. We're going out.
Your voice, your voice, your voice with the NRP. This and every Monday, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Join host Stephen Semanas and the NRP candidates as they amplify your voice.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or